Okay, so welcome to lesson two. And I just want to say that, please remind yourself to follow the exercises. And again, from the last lesson, it was about you starting a very small scale understanding of trying to get some audience research with your friends to see what the stations they listen to. And when they listen to it, and so long as like how many hours, if they do listen to radio 4 hours or any at all a week, and that'll bring us to our lesson two. Lesson two continues to go on um, the audience research and understanding your audience, and there are your pages of Beyond Powerful Radio as well as the next level. We're going to be looking at who's listening, what the concept of RAMs are once again, and you can have a look at the power to convince is where I actually want to start for today, because this is just a bit of a recap, right? So understanding your audience, listen behaviors change drastically. Once again, like we said, in the last lesson, as well as being able to understand the figures and being able to understand the stats, and knowing exactly why those stats are the way they are gives us a better understanding on how to approach and obviously serve our listener, right? Okay, so this obviously comes from Valerie Keller's book, okay, The Power to Convince. Are you talking to the audience or are you talking at them? Like that is a super important concept in radio. For example, let's say I have a prep sheet and I've got like an article with a couple of tweets, or some responses on Facebook, or just the way that people respond on TikTok or whatever it is, I don't know. And I start just reading out like just facts or whatever it is, or just the article itself. I'm speaking at you and not to you, and that is a massive way to like immediately cut off communication and connection with your listener. So we do not talk at our listener; we talk to them. One way you in your own life, you must understand that there are people that claim to be listeners. They're good listeners, but they're only listening so that when that obviously another person just stops talking, they can respond. Those people are not connecting and are not communicating. They are waiting to talk at people, and not to people. Listening is the common denominator. Proper, like pure unadulterated listening is the common denominator for what a good communicator is all about. Because if you listen, you can like on the fly and on the spot respond accurately and ask in more in-depth questions, or really hear what a person is about, and what a situation is made of, whatever it is. Research can assist presenters and program managers when working with obviously our own talent, as we've introduced in the last lesson. But learning obviously how to communicate with your listener is something that someone can give you the just like kind of the mandate of skill sets, but if you just do not know how to practice and grow that, and actually see how the difference starts to resonate within the way that people respond to you, and situations become clearer and become just a lot more three-dimensional to you, then you're just not going to make it in a communication based industry. Okay, so the research does help us. Like, let's say if I had to ask you to research one person that like you'd be and I should just do it for a day, or maybe just observe them for the week, or maybe ask some questions or whatever it is. Like, you get to know them a whole lot better, and you would immediately know what to do, if any actions are required to make them tick, to help them get further in life, or help them stop certain obstacles, or stuff that's maybe self-deteriorating, or whatever it is, to their living. Giving an example of understanding the differences between, again, talking at people and talking to them is exactly what I've described. This whole kind of like people also not all of us are not simple-minded. In other words, when someone talks at you, like you get that look in your eyes and you just stop listening completely because you know that this has nothing to do with you right now and has no investment in you at all. And the same action is emulated when we're listening to a jock that is speaking at us. We just switch the radio off because things were like, no, the show is definitely not about us. It's definitely all about him or her or them, when they're having private jokes and like things that we like as a listener sitting and saying, why are we trying to understand something that is their job to keep us along for the ride? Let's keep going on. So with the whole crystal ball, as we mentioned in the previous lesson about, like we do not want to ever guesstimate like what is going on with our listeners. We do that through proper analysis, asking the right questions again. And when we do analyze, we have to ask the right questions within the analysis process, right? To be able to get results that actually mean something for us, so that it can make business intellectual decisions, and help us within decision making processes that are critical to the life span of a radio station, right? Don't get intimidated, as we said in the end of the last lesson, by the language and the research, like tracking studies versus action studies. Again, one of those things where we are keeping diaries and versus us actually going to go ahead and do something based on the data that we get. Um, and what I want to do is I want to bring up, so I'm going to just bring up, and I would like you to do this as an exercise. So, I picked an article specifically from Tech Daily that is something that would require just, by default for you to be financially savvy. So understand kind of terms and terminology, the current financial environment and landscape within within our country, or just like a financial landscape and how it works, and what are the factors and the variables within there. And I said there, I conceptualize why this might be important to a listener, draft up 5 ways that is current in their life by springboarding ideas that come from this, and explain the best one based on relevance, and explain why. So I'm going to switch over to that article. Let me just quickly just stop. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to switch over. Just give me a second here. So just share a different screen. Uh, second. And again, I am just switching back and forth. Second, yeah. Maybe a couple of seconds. Okay, here's the Tech Daily one. Okay, all right. So managing your finances. I thought let me pick something that is not too technically involved. It is Tech Daily, so starts already alienating you from the content, just because it is based on Canadian behaviors, right? But the thing is that like I can use this and be like, okay, well, everybody knows that like needing to control a budget and your finances, and how to start saving money is something that everybody is privy to. So like let's say I would say I'd read through the article first to see whether or not like which parts of it I can use to create some content would be relevant or not. So I would briefly look through. Right now I'm briefly looking at it, like as a producer I would thoroughly look at this and many other articles, right? But we're pretending as though it's that moment where I'm coming across here, and looking and saying, okay, maybe I can use this as a base article. So being making sure that you stick to an allowance when it comes to housing, food, insurance, things that you have to pay, like for example, maybe rent or mortgage, or things that you cannot get away from, like travel expenses, petrol, etc., etc., and understanding how to budget. But that's not for me enough, right? Okay. Um, like I would then have to say, okay, how is it that I can split maybe a budget? And that would be one, like a particular great call out that is very useful to my listener, because budgeting is one thing, it's just a term that people throw around. But if you have to sit down without someone that actually has the know-how of doing it, maybe on a semi-professional, or because they're professional because they've been doing it for a long time, or they are, again, once again, within that profession of some kind of financial sector. Like, you can budget and be like, okay, well, I'm going to give like $400 to like toll gates or whatever it is, like for the month, and so on and so forth. And then I would have to like learn like a cause and effect and trial and error thing of, which maybe I don't want to do for my listener. I want to be able to know, um and let them know, like how it is, like what are the fundamentals of budgeting correctly. And I would get, let's say, a financial advisor, with definitely taking a couple of calls and saying, like, like, to the listener, tell us like some of the biggest mistakes that you've experienced when you were self budgeting for yourself, and some things that perhaps maybe are really great life, like hacks, budget hacks, that our other listeners could learn from. So that could be one angle that I could go with. Stay disciplined with the spending. I could bring in the concept just from this and say, okay, one of the big things that people need is discipline. And discipline means what exactly? It means sticking to, beyond any emotional response and emotional, like buying, etc. To consider what exactly your financial status is, right? What is also considered threats maybe in the future, like possible things that you might have to save for a rainy day, things that maybe you might be proactively trying to avoid. So let's say making sure that I would like to hire an electrician just to come in and check, just so it's a much smaller fee than actual, fixing anything, or solving like a massive problem, like a blowout, whatever it is. I don't know. I would look at specific things on, different types of discipline, because it's not only about starving yourself and like buying the cheapest bread and buying the cheapest milk and buying the cheapest everything, or not buying anything that maybe is not necessary, completely necessary. But also understanding how discipline might also factor, like rewarding yourself. If you do have some excess, excess finance, revenue, profit, or whatever it is. I won't say profit, you're not a business, but like extra money in the bank, after your paycheck or whatever it may be. I could also explain discipline in terms of people that are wage workers, or people that have temporary jobs, and how to manage, like inconsistent sources and resources of income. um, I would like you to do the same, and have a look at how I can have different discussions about one specific area, not necessarily even going through all these things and making it a big umbrella topic, but rather something like, I have a financial show. I have to consider the fact that I might be on the show forever, and so I need forever content. And I want to also be able to make sure that I'm hitting the mark directly with what it is that people need right now within my target market and my format and my station and my club. Remember, as I said in the previous mail, I'm going to switch screens now. Just give me a second. So I'm going to stop the share again, go back to the PowerPoint presentation, and then we can move on. Okay. All right. Okay. So please go do that. That is also something that I want to check with you and touch base in the one-on-one facial, obviously, like virtual sessions that we're going to have next week. Remember, that is from 9 to 12. Okay, 9 to 12. Always the 3 hours, first 3 hours of the morning, and it'll be every second week, every so alternative week. Okay, and then I'll do pre-recorded as I'm doing right now, like lessons in between for you to watch and then obviously process, etc. Okay, so what do we really want to know? Okay, it doesn't help that you research programming issues if you're not going to want to find out what the truth of the matter is, So once again, if we're failing in numbers, or if we're failing in loyalty, or failing in what we call a P1 listener, so we have a P1 listener that only listens to that specific station and nothing else, and we're suddenly seeing that loyalty is starting to go pear-shaped, and we kind of maybe know the reason why, but we don't really want to know the reason why, because we know that we're at fault, and now maybe we spent a lot of money or whatever it is, and a lot of resources, and once again, you've made the wrong choice at the end of the day, right? Um, Before you begin, make sure that you're prepared to make the necessary changes. Big thing is like just especially look when it's something that we had so much investment in, and we put a lot of work in creating, just made the wrong decisions. I mean, this can happen when you're doing a show. Just so you've got some great content, you prepped it well. You go and you do, let's say, a call out, and you want to speak about this particular piece of content that you've come up with, and nobody responds. And there's a lot of reasons why that that happens, and the thing is that, like, we get so incredibly hurt, by that. Sometimes we make the mistake of trying to push it again as though people did not hear what we spoke about. They heard just fine, and we still didn't get any responses. And it could be something as simple as it was maybe just not on the right day. So maybe it wasn't meant to be on a weekend afternoon. It was supposed to be on a weekend breakfast show, or like I say, a Monday lunch show or drive show. It doesn't matter. Or it was meant for a different audience or completely, and would have really worked well on another station, just not this one right now. So again, just in terms of like pushing it out to the on air aspect. But we're also right here today to talk about like the Rams, okay, and being able to understand cumulative audiences. So diaries do not capture real time listening because they're done over time, and obviously there is. When I say a delay in it, we're going to get the books that represented the past 4 months, 3 months in this, obviously in this country, right? Because we get quarterly, and we get four books a year, right? Okay, for four diaries. Okay. So anyway, in practice of measuring the size of U.S. commercial broadcasting and newspapers audiences, the concept of CUME, a short term for cumulative audience, is a measure of total number of unique consumers of a specific period to a specific product, right? We don't count listeners twice. We want to be able to note that a listener is unique, and so we can count them as, like a dependable a number within a dependable accumulative, right? Okay, there's the phantom cum. Okay, so that's a percentage of a cum that does not mention your radio station in their diaries as they didn't remember listening to it. We look at concepts like that, and again, the BRC, because they are so professional, obviously well founded for so many years in what they do. We depend on them to know exactly what they're doing when they do the research methodologies that they do apply. Okay, so we are going to be taking a bird's eye view of the BRC RAMs. Okay, so BRC measurements, all right, and it's a multi-platform and intuitive survey that is respondent friendly across all walks of South African life, right? So this tool collects the most accurate data through a 7-day diary across different geographies, locations, languages, socioeconomic landscapes, as I was saying about a SEM, right? So our socioeconomic measurements, and again comes out in the four times a year. All right, I want to just quickly, I'm going to switch over again. I'm going to stop the share here, and I'm going to jump over to just look. I've included some of the admin documents on to Call Campus, so you can go look at some of the FAQs. You can go look at like just like initial introduction to what the BOC is all about. But I have also included, let me just share the screen here. Um, let's quickly get to the RAMs amplified. Right, okay, here we go. So I'm just going to literally look at the numbers right now, and I'll explain to you obviously again. As I was saying in the previous lesson, I mean, and I just said now there's things that we consider, and there's your P7D, which obviously is your 7 day diary, right? Okay, and then we also have our unique listeners on our Y days, right? Single day measurements, okay, and average on that. Okay, so all right, so we have our sample sizes, okay, and we're going to look at, let's say, I'm just going to look at, let's look at October. So we said September to August, and we have October to September, right? And you can see that obviously that resonates through from 2021 to 2022, so that we compare year to year. We want to be able to compare year to year to really see what the difference is, if there are any major differences, right? Of our, let's say, like a listener drop. This makes like quite a lot of sense in the beginning, because in the beginning of the year last year, well, no, actually, I mean, no, we're looking from September. So please, I was going to say something that's completely wrong, completely with me, right? Okay, so we know that, for example, like Ukozi is our, like, it's they always have the most listeners, right? Because I mean, that's just the way life has been in South Africa, right? But when we delve further into, let's say, Ukozi versus here East Coast and Jacaranda, like the P1 listeners. So in other words, the people that only choose to listen to that radio station, East Coast and Jacaranda have the highest percentage of that, right? And that reflects in their, like I say, for example, the way that they will charge for certain, like advertising, sponsorships, activations, whatever it is, and you will see that the prices are so much more. Like it is like a really big difference between their pricing and Ukozi's, because an Ukozi listener will switch and swap between like Ukozi and like a different station more often. Their P1 listeners, percentage of P1 listeners is much lower. Okay, like you can go ahead and have a look. What's obviously goes all the way down, which is kind of cool. Takes us right down to like our second station for OFM. What's nice then is have a look at some of these and see whether we can get like some community stations. Yeah, I want to look at some particular that are noted. If you don't make the oh, here we go. Okay, so here's our community stations. All right. So in particular, because I'm a Tux alumni, like it's a Tux strong. See, like that is not good for Tux. Go from 23,000 to 16,000. That's terrible. I mean, to lose so many listeners at a community level where every listener counts, like that is crazy, right? Because we can't blame like uh, so like our landscape, and say, okay, well, things are happening in South Africa right now. Again, remember it was from September October to September October, right? And if we again also look at other stations, for example, let's say Paleo M, there's Mix FM, there is here Impact Radio, we have Radio Pulpit. Like these numbers are increasing, and so Tux, for example, we have to sit down and say, "Oh my word, we have done something seriously, incredibly wrong, and we need to fix this." Because if you drop under, I think it's under 10,000. Like they don't even consider you. Well, there you go. Okay, well, that's that's really not good. Um, I haven't scrolled this far down the rands just yet. Oof. Er, okay, so there's we got some PBS stations in there as well, and for you to just go through and have a look at, again, that's going through different states and have a look at that. Okay, all right, great stuff. So you can go have a look at that. I'm going to again stop the share, go back to the lesson itself, and here we, yeah, all right. So uh like let's say a community station like let's say Tux, okay, who can't community stations in general cannot afford to pay for more detailed, very specific, so in other words quarterly, so in terms of what is happening quarterly, like every 15 minutes in their hours, would have to now sit and say, okay, we have to analyze exactly everything on the station, what is happening on our social mediums that is affecting it, what kind of content is going out, like what shows are not working, what teams are not working, and we'd have to start making some very big programming decisions. But also noting the fact that they only have 16,000 listeners right now, and big programming decisions could affect that if they make another incorrect decision, or one that is very, very jarring. In other words, something that's very completely different to a previous idea, they risk losing more listeners and getting to a point where they can't actually consider themselves like a premium community brand, right? Um, so, uh, so, uh, so this is, for community stations specifically, it's quite a very, it's a difficult process to be able to analyze and move forward and make decisions. But the best thing as a program manager or station manager is to make small choices that have big effects. So, for example, maybe I need to change my breakfast show, but then the rest of my lineup cannot change at all. Everything else must be the same for a long time, for like 3 months after making a change to the breakfast show, because we're going to have a lot of repercussions, because again the breakfast show is the flagship show, and we don't want the rest. We don't want to listen to be like, oh, there's too many changes. If there's just one more change, your listener's going to be like, no, I mean, like, this is now ridiculous. If they are any changes, people do not like change in life, and that is something that you'll learn if you go into radio. Doesn't matter where you are, if you're taking over a big show, like they will say to you, you got to keep it simple. You can't come in guns blazing. Anybody of any kind of like status or whatever it is, doesn't matter, can't come in and just suddenly be like, boom, here I am, because listeners have got like a lifestyle that they got to readjust right now. So you got to come in kind of like low on the radar, get their obviously trust and their loyalty, and then grow from there. Anyway, okay. So going back to just what the Rams look like. I mean, I want to actually show you some pictures. As you can see that they're coming up. So South African radio listening for the BRC Ram began collectively in 2016. So as I was saying to you, it's been quite a long time the BRC has taken over. We have been much better for it, and every station can agree on that. Okay, so looking at people over the age of 15, and why we look at 15 specifically and upwards, so let's say, for example, like a 15 to a 17, 18-year old, is because these people are going to be the ones that are going to grow into people, or people or parts of our community that earn and spend money. 15 to 17-year-olds are very important to understand where we can progress to, but not necessarily people that we want to advertise certain, like our main target, uh, to, as our main target too. Okay. Um, so very important to understand that where their semantics and their behaviors and their where they are just in general, is super important. Okay, all right. So we've discussed obviously how it's quarterly as well, and then again, it's just one of those things where we want to be able to look at from year on year is better than, let's say, book to book, just because different things happen at different types of the year. So, for example, it could be we are normally news heavy, just because of sports and whatever it may be during the middle of the year, June, July, and we might have a larger listenership of within our RAMs at that time, and we can't constitute it as a guarantee that our programming was better because there were other reasons to listen to the radio. So we want to be able to look year on year and be able to see, okay, look, this is a change that we can definitely consider more reliable on. Okay, so as I said there, the diaries are how households and individuals they are selected as with PPS, probability proportionate to size. So and they also are selected on, well, I mean, like, do they want to actually do it, take part, right? So how can a sample represent a whole population? Well, again, because we flood the numbers, right? We make them, but now we have more, like I say, more accurate understanding of like how to flood those numbers correctly and amplify them so that they are more accurate. In your book, you should be able to see a portion of what a diary will look like. So obviously afternoon, morning, with all the times there, exactly what are you doing, who you're listening to, what are you eating, whatever it is. And then you'll see that it says the average daily audiences from Monday to Friday. Monday to Sundays are P7Ds, right? Okay. Whereas our Y days are the Monday to Fridays, okay? And then we'll start breaking it down into race, into age, into sex, into like what they are again in terms of LSM, what they're all ready to spend their money on. Okay. Sorry, not LSM, SEM. My mistake there. Okay. So as you can see there, that let's say there are predominant SEMs and percentages in certain in certain provinces, for example. So Gauteng, we would expect that there's like a higher SEM. There actually isn't. We have high SEMs like 8, 9, and sevens in the northwestern and the northern Cape in this particular example, right? So again, why are the SMs important? Because that obviously affects the type of products, let's say, and the type of content that we decide to put out on our station, so that it can sit as something that is viable and valuable to these particular listeners that have a certain lifestyle that they lead. So you will see that if you listen to 702, like a very high SEM, and just the way that audience is researched and understood is that even the way that the who the presenters on the shows that they present and the type of content they put out is very um I don't want to say upper class. It's very convoluted. It's so of a very different, completely different nature to, let's say, SAFM, which is another talk station, which is what we would like to compare S702 with. Make sure that is not a competitor that actually yields any results. If we're looking from a 702 angle, SAFM, also Power FM, would be one that 702 would consider, right? It all depends on how people live, okay? And here also we might see that on certain stations, like the weekends might be more popular than the weekdays, even the weekday breakfast, right? Certain stations, the brunches are much larger than the breakfast. So we can't always, you will always hear it. You'll always hear that the breakfast is the flagship show. Like it is the most important, quote unquote, or whatever it is. But from station to station, that is not exactly true because again, the behavior of the listeners, the lifestyle of the listeners, completely different. Okay. All right. Okay. So why again, why all the stats, all the diaries, going to the BRC, making yourself someone that is familiar to, like, we want to make sure that we are in touch and we are touching base with the correct audience when we are constructing our radio station and its formats, right? So you can obviously read through the semantics and whatever it may be. Um, we obviously want to make sure that you understand that within the breakdowns, we have AM and FM still. We're not in a digital or a DAB country just yet. And again, how can I request that my radio station be included in surveys? I mean, all you have to do is email the BRC. Uh, uh, Previously, they wouldn't include stations that wouldn't reach a certain mark. So, like I was saying, they're like 10,000. If you fall behind, like below 10,000, they just wouldn't include you at all. And now, okay, that particular amendment is there, which is, I suppose, pretty cool. Uh, okay. So again, there, what is the ABOC sample? 30,000 household interviews per year conducted amongst members of the household aged 15 plus. So everybody in the house. Will then obviously take part in it if you are above the age of 15. So is probability or non-probability sampling used? Probability sampling is used. All persons in South Africa age 15 plus have a chance to be selected for the survey. Is sample proportionate? So no, the sample is disproportionate in that it is a higher. So again, as I said, it is flooded, right, on what people maybe represented. So how many black people there might be in a certain area that are belonging under an SEM of four, with all obviously the other bells and whistles. Okay. All right. Independent learning, please. This is for yourself, right? And if we have some time in the contact session to look at it, please read example 11A on page 425 of Next Level Radio, and please complete the activity 11A, question 1, 2, 3, and 4, page 419. And I will see you in our contact session next week. Okay. Until then, keep well, be safe. Just because there's no COVID, don't mean you can't keep safe. And have a good week ahead.